I'll show you. I won't get up now.
Yeah, you can start.
How do I start with my video like that? Okay, fine. Let me see. There's something wrong with my Zoom. All right, so let's go here. I'll do it without the video right now. All right, hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the ECDF webinar. And the topic is really interesting, and it is on strategies of how to have a productive early years classroom. And we have a host of speakers with us from varied backgrounds and varied countries, and they're here to share their expertise with you all. So before we begin, let me just apologize for my video. I don't know, Zoom is acting up smart. I think I was looking too beautiful. It got jealous and it just switched off my video. I don't know why. So I'll try to do it within the session in case I can, retrieve it. Only when Zoom stops feeling so jealous about me. Okay. We have some very beautiful speakers, but their videos are on. Now I am feeling jealous. Let the Zoom be. Okay, so here we have the videos on of all our speakers. Rishti, can you please put on your video? Yeah, it's there. Right. So strategies for a productive early years classroom. Very, very important. How to make our early years classroom very productive. Now, what do we mean by productive is something that we all would have our own definitions for the same, because we would be working in different environments and with different setups under different managements in different countries. It would mean very differently. But let's see what we can give to our attendees today. And I'm very sure there are going to be a lot of takeaways. So here I am, Smriti Agarwal, an early childhood educator and expert since past 28 years. And like I always say, I have my inner child still alive in me and very much kicking. And so many times that becomes a questionable thing, because people feel like, yeah, Ari, how come you still act so childish? But that's me, and I'm an early childhood educator. I've been surrounded by kids from 2 to 4 years, 5 years, means my whole life. What do you expect? And it's a give and take. I learn from them. And if I learn from them, you can expect, what do you expect first from somebody who's learning from a 2-year-old? It's like that. So let me introduce my esteemed speakers for the day. We have Dr. Catherine Murray. She's an education consultant, mentor, a global presenter at Future Strong Education, Sunshine Coast, from Queensland, Australia. And currently, I don't think so, she's in Australia. She'll tell you where she is. And she's a member of the ECDF, Early Child Development Forum International Wing. That means she takes care of our global presence. Welcome, Dr. Catherine. We are always, always delighted to have you on our shows. Then we have Ms. Drishti Chugh. Ms. Drishti Chugh is a child counselor and a parenting expert, a difficult task indeed, a very uphill task to be a child counselor and also a parenting expert, because parents need experts like her to know what to do. She's worked in Melbourne, Australia. Okay, there it goes. She has also worked in Australia and Melbourne as a mental health therapist in high school for a year, and then as a lead educator in kindergarten for 3 years. After moving back to India last year, she pursued her career by working as a behavioral therapist for special needs children, and she's a parenting expert. So all you parents out there, you know whom to contact. You have any queries, you can write to us. Then we have Ms. Garima Bhatia, who's an early years educator. She's enabling early years environment, designing learning spaces. She's providing continuous provisions, conducting mother-toddler programs, and she emphasizes on importance of play in early years and social emotional learning. Now, social emotional learning is much more important than your child actually reading or writing or knowing letters of the alphabet and numbers. It's much more important than that. So she's doing that. She's making that difference. She works with the transitions in early years and parental involvement in the earlier setting. And those are some of her areas of expertise. She's also a Jolly Phonics trainer. Now educators and parents are going to be very happy. Jolly Phonics. Oh, you know phonics. Very good. Because that's something that they all look forward to, or they send their children to Jolly Phonics classes. Next, we have with us Ms. Gina Bale. Gina has spent her last 29 years of teaching movement and dance in mainstream early years and in the SEND settings. She has qualifications in teaching movement and dance from Royal Ballet School, Trinity College, and Royal Academy of Dance in the UK. She's the founder of Little Magic Train, which is feeling cold right now. So yeah, because it's very cold in UK. So the Little Magic Train is like gone a little cold. We need to warm it up, right? And the warming up would be coming from all your reactions and comments. So please do write in. We need you. And I still don't see Dr. Vasvi Charya, the chairperson of Early Child Development Forum. She's tied up somewhere. And now I see.
I'm there.
Oh.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
And I would request Dr. Vasvi Acharya to please say a few lines to open up the webinar and share her thoughts on the strategies in actually making early years classroom more productive.
A very good evening from India, from Assam, and I welcome you all to today's very interesting webinar on this very interesting topic. And we have a few experts lined up to talk about it. And I feel that early childhood classroom needs to have that ambience to make the children, open to learning. Because when we see a place which is very well, well designed, and it is conducive to learning, it adds a lot. And so let's hear the experts. Over to you, Smriti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vasvi Acharya. Yes, environment plays a very important role in making your early years classroom productive. And we have the environment specialist on our team today, and they're going to talk about it. And I was so much looking forward to Dr. Catherine Murray's, half an hour session on brain set environment, and I could never join in, and I regret that. And I'm looking forward for her to speak about it today. So that first, let's put up the common question to all our speakers and let's hear their thoughts. So the common question, which is going to go to all the speakers turn by turn, is that what, according to them, are the features of a productive early years classroom? So how do we define a productive early years classroom? So we know about early years classroom, we should have the primary colors, and we should have a very nurturing environment, and we should have child-friendly furniture, and we should have toys, and we should have a lot of access to different resources and material. These are the things that most of the educators know. But then how do we make it productive? What do you mean by a productive early years classroom is my question. And the question first goes to Ms. Garima Bhatia. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here, and it is always a wonderful opportunity by Ms. Vasavi to connect with the global community. So I'd say that the productive early years environment is an environment where the child feels very safe and empathetic and very connected, because the age group that we are talking about, that is the most important thing before scaffolding to their learning. So a classroom which welcomes their culture, I think that's where the productivity begins. In a very short way, I'll start with that.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Garima, for sharing your thoughts. Yes, empathetic environment. It's a safe environment because safety comes first. As we all know that, the Maslow's hierarchy, the first level of the pyramid is the physiological needs. So if the child is physically satisfied, that is with food, with water, with safety and security, is when the learning would actually start for him or her to go to the self-actualization stage. So very importantly said, and another very important point here is their own culture. Are we talking about an environment where the child feels connected, the child feels a belonging to, is also very important, because if a child comes into a classroom and feels alienated, I don't think so the brain development would take place or the learning would take place. So well said, Ms. Garima, in a short but very, very important points that given there. Now I go over to Ms. Gina Bale.
Can you hear me? Good.
Yes, Ms. Gina. So what, according to you, is a productive classroom?
Obviously, the environment for the children to make sure that they're safe. I actually visited an amazing setting the other day, and what I think makes for the best setting for productivity for the children is having the best staff and teachers who are experts in early years, that they listen to the children, they know their personal circumstances, because circumstances at home have a huge impact on the children's learning. When they actually know all about the child as much as they're able to, they will know what will help engage them. They know if they have a bad day, if they're having a good day. I watched this nursery, the children come in and they say good morning and greet every single child, and they check to see how they're feeling before they send them off to wash their hands and take their coats off. It is the child is being listened to, and they know that they are loved and safe. And it's, for me, it's about the teachers. The teachers, for me, come first, because they're the ones who are dealing with and looking after your children. That's my view. I will stop now.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gina. Yes, of course. The first thing that comes to our mind is, the adult who's going to take care of the children in a nursery. So the parents would also feel, definitely the first thing that they would see in a nursery, apart from all the infrastructure and all the fancy things that we have, is that who are they handing over their child to? So the teachers are, of course, the most important, and they have to be taken care of. We have to ensure that they are trained, they're experts in their field. And of course, every child, each voice in the classroom needs to be heard. And it's fantastic what Ms. Gina just shared, that, in case once we greet the child and we just ask them, how are they feeling today, would set the right note for the day for the child. Because before we begin the day and before we begin with our routine, in case we know what the child is feeling and going through, it would really, really help. Like, I was the school head, like, for the longest time. And when my children used to come to school, that's what I used to tell the teachers, do you ask them, have they had their breakfast? Did they sleep well? Did they actually have a bath? Because believe me, in India, in so many times and so many circumstances, I've seen that your children are rushed to the school in the morning without even having a bath or a breakfast, because they must be sleeping till late, and the parent just picks them up and then just brings them to the school and drops them to the school, to the teacher. And now it's a teacher's struggle to, deal with a sleepy child. So the child who's not had breakfast, who's not been freshened up, and so many times you're potty training them. So it goes, it's a long way if you know how the child is feeling and what are the circumstances at home. Superbly said, Ms. Gina. Over to you, Dr. Catherine. What do you feel?
Thanks, Smriti. And already there's been so many great ideas about what makes a productive classroom environment. I think just building on what everyone else has said is that relationships are the biggest thing. Building relationships with children, finding out what they do when they're not with you. What do they do on the weekend? What do they do with their family? And having a real interest in the children, I think, makes a big difference, and it supports a lot of the things that have already been said. And I think we know that we've got a productive classroom when we have that beautiful hum of learning. Early childhood classrooms are always busy, and there's always noise in an early childhood classroom. And if there's not, there's something really wrong. So it's always like that. But there's a difference between just noise. There's a difference between just a noisy classroom with children yelling and running through the rooms than children who are engaged in the materials that they're working with, children who are thinking, children who are exploring their oral language, expanding their decision-making skills and their solution finding skills. There's a difference in the hum of learning is what I call it. So I think that's building relationships and bringing in those interests adds to that hum of learning. And I'll talk more about it when we get to the questions, Smriti.
Absolutely, Dr. Kathy. That was like really brilliant. So if you have a genuine interest in children, and if you actually do believe that we need to hear them, and we got to know of how and what they are made above, would build long-lasting relationships. Now, if the teacher and the child has a good relationship, more than half of the battle is won. Definitely, because if a positive relationship is there, the child would be doing much, much more than what the child is expected to do, just for the sake of that relationship. You know, how kids are, these are this age group children, they want to see their parents happy, they want to see their teachers happy. And if, you know, they get that motivation, if they get that relationship building, then of course, they're definitely. Noisy classrooms and a classroom full of children's voices are two very different things. Like Dr. Catherine pointed out, a noisy classroom where the children are, you know, just making a noise and are not engaged, or they're not doing anything productive, is not something that we are looking at. We're looking at children where they're actively engaged, they're thinking, they're sharing their thoughts, their feelings, is something that we actually advocate. So thank you so much, Dr. Kathy. Over to you, Ms. Rishti.
Hi, everybody. I'm just gonna add to everybody's beautiful point of view here. The first one for me, according to me, is the safety and the security. Like the parents are dropping down their children, the children should feel safe and secure in the environment. The other one is the diversity and inclusion as well. All the children from different backgrounds, different cultures, traditions which they follow at home should be feel included, and the opportunities, the corner should be set up according to them as well, keeping all the different cultures in mind. The other point I would like to add, adding a well-being corner or a mental health corner as well, so that when every age group, everybody has a right to feel sad or any emotion they are feeling, they should have a safe space in their classroom where they can go up to, maybe just read a book, maybe just cuddle a teddy bear, or just maybe sit down quietly for a bit. And the last one I would like to add, having partnership with the parents, with the families, the teachers in the classroom should have partnership and open communication with the parents of, you know, what happened at home due to a certain reason the child was behaving that way in the classroom. So partnership with families is really important. Yeah, that's it for now, and then rest we will discuss in the questions coming forward.
I know. So we do have a long way to go. This is just a beginning. This is just a spark. So thank you so much, Ms. Rishti, for sharing your thoughts. And it's very, indeed a lot to take away from there. And I just extremely love the thought of a safe corner, that mental health and well-being corner where the child can feel safe, the child can feel that they can express themselves, and the child can actually, who's feeling low, can go and hug a teddy bear and sit down. I would like to do that sometimes. I really feel when you feel like you're so tired and you're so overwhelmed, you want to actually have a quiet corner. And in our adult life, we don't get it. At least let the children have that. So let's not just keep pushing them and forcing them throughout the day, you know, without considering how they are feeling. Another thing that was a very good takeaway from Ms. Rishti's point of view was the inclusivity, the diverse culture. Now, today we're talking about a globalized world. We're talking about diverse culture. In one classroom, we do not have children who are coming from the same cultural background or same kind of a family setting. And when families differ right now, these days, even we can't tell the children that, you know, there's a family is made up of one mama, one daddy, and, you know, one sibling or you yourself or something of that sort. There can be varied kind of family structures. There can be varied kind of cultures that the child is coming from. And all the children would not necessarily fit in that form, that particular format of what we are expecting. So please be considerate. Think about it, how the child is feeling, where is he coming from. All these points needs to be considered. So, okay, fine. The teacher considers all of these and then goes into the classroom. And then there is a school management who's like breathing down her neck. Hello, curriculum, please deliver, implement, go around with the routine of the day. So that is like the teachers is like, I am trying to connect to a child. I don't have, and it takes so much of time. And then you want me to finish my curriculum in this particular time and this particular hour. So what about productivity then? So if you think about it practically, how much of it can be practically implemented in an earliest classroom, like Dr. Catherine pointed out, is always a very busy space, because there's all the children who are doing, if they're 10 in the class, if they're 20 in the class, or they're 30 in the class, they're all busy doing something or the other, and maybe individually, and maybe not listening to the teacher. So let's see, how do we control all of that? And I think the best way to do it is if we know about the brain education, and if we know about something that is new and that is really, really exciting, and it's called the brain set, SET. So over to you, Dr. Catherine. My first question to you. So what is a brain set environment in early years, and how can educators create it in their existing setup? Like I said, that there's always a school management, there's always a particular infrastructure, there's always a particular, curriculum given to them. In their existing setup, how do one actually create a brain set environment, and how does it help in strategizing a productive early years classroom?
Thanks, Smriti. That's a lot of questions for 10 minutes, 10-minute slot. Am I able to share the screen, Smriti?
Let me just see. I think you can, Ms. Catherine, just please go first.
Okay. Okay, so are you able to see my screen?
Oh, yes, we can, very clearly.
Great. All right. So I just want to walk us through in a very quick overview of the brain set environments formula that I've developed over 40 years of education. So I've been around for 40 years, and if you want to know more after this really short presentation, you can see the websites either side there, the Brain Set Formula website and my Future Strong Education website. But in essence, when we're talking about the brain and how we set up our learning environment, they've got to align. We've got to consider how children's brains are developing before we can start designing the learning environment in a particular way that's going to be advantageous for children and going to be engaging and going to be interesting and going to give them that sense of achievement. No matter what ability level they are, no matter what age they are, they can go into the small defined spaces and be successful in any of those spaces. Now, we all know that the brain is a really complex organ. And for young children, 90% of the growth is still occurring after birth. So, we have a pivotal role to play in early childhood when we're thinking about the way that we are helping the synapses form and the neural pathways develop in the brain. And the way we do that in early childhood education is by providing open-ended, engaging activities or experiences for children so their brains develop in a healthy way and a healthy rate. Now, we know there's lots of regions, and we know the brain all works together both vertically and horizontally, but for the purpose of talking about brain set, I'm just going to break it down into 3 basic levels that the brain has. And you can see the SET stands for survival, emotions, and thinking parts of the brain. So the survival part of the brain is the brain stem. So that's the oldest part of the brain. That's the part that's developed first in utero, so when the baby's still within the mother. And that's the reptilian brain. And that's the part of the brain that keeps us alive. It helps this human being to survive. So that's the thing that makes the heart pump. It makes the eyelashes blink. It makes us breathe. And we don't even have to think about it. And that's just here. Now, the next part of the brain is that we want to talk about is this limbic system, and that's where the emotions are housed, and that's in behind the ear there. It's the amygdala. Now, the amygdala registers how we feel. So for children, we need to make sure that they have that sense of safety in the brainstem. So the way we set up our environment, and I'll get to that in a minute, but the way we set up our environment can allow children to have that sense of safety and have that sense of security, and also feel safe. So the sense of security and feeling secure and safe are two different things. So we have to align those two parts of the brain. And when that all happens, because of the way we've set up our learning environment, then the brain is clear to think. This neocortex part at the top of the brain is open to think. So, you know, we can shine. Now, when children have experienced trauma, like most of us do at some stage in our lives, there's a rush of cortisol into this top part of the brain. That's the stress hormone. And when that happens, children and us as adults, we get this thing called foggy brain. And it's that sort of thing that, you know, if you've had a conversation with somebody and you're feeling a little threatened. So that sense of security isn't there. You're feeling threatened. The cortisol races into this top part of your brain and you have this thing called foggy brain. So it means you can't remember things. So you walk away from the conversation and you think, oh, I wish I would have said that. Oh, I wish I would have used that as an example, because you couldn't think of it at the time. So children who are experiencing trauma are still functioning perfectly fine, but not at the optimum level, because they're struggling through this foggy brain. So the memory is in jeopardy. Decision-making isn't maybe as clear as it could be. Problem solving, self-regulation, all of those things that we are often dealing with every day in our classroom environments could all be because of the cortisol that's flooding the brain, because these first two aren't aligned. So the way we set up our room is really important, because we have to calm these two, because a calm brain is a thinking brain. Now, I've developed a pedagogy around this, and the pedagogy has three parts. It's got three pillars in it that you can see on the right-hand side there. So we've got the survival pillar, which is the design for learning, and each of these pillars has got a number of elements that you can see, and we don't have time to go through them all now. And that's what, you know, I usually do over 5 weeks of training, go through all of these things. But basically, it's setting up small defined spaces throughout our learning environment. So we're not having a big open room. We're having almost small rooms within the room. And for just a small number of children, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, you know, probably no more than 6. And in these small defined spaces that are dotted around the room. Then we have the emotions, we have those feelings for learning. So we're having cozy corners, as we spoke about before. We have a sensory space, and we have the, you know, sensory experiences dotted throughout the room, because, you know, we learn through our senses. So it's important that we include that in the way we set up our learning environment. We would have soft furnishings. So we would have like a couch. We would have a well-being space tucked away in the corner. I call it a respite space, and that's in the thinking part. We would have soft colors. We would have natural sorts of colors, so creams and olive greens and like colors of nature. And then we can add things to the colors of nature, but, you know, that's really the essence of it, because those colors are calm colors. And remember, we're aiming for calm, right? So we want calm colors. We want calm language being used. We want maybe some plants being brought in. So we bring nature into the learning environment if it's inside, and if it's an outside environment, most of these elements that I'm talking to you about also apply outside in nature. We have the soft lighting. I think I said that. We might have some fairy lights in the room, something that's just nice and soft and calm. Then we go to the thinking part, and that's the different spaces that we would have in our learning environment. So we might have tables where we stand. We might have cushions on the floor. We might have normal tables and chairs, but small, sectioned off, not big rows of tables with, you know, 10 children at, you know, either side, or 5 children either side of the table. We want small little spaces dotted throughout the environment, and that adds to that sense of safety. It adds to feeling of knowing where to go and knowing what to do. The things that we put into those spaces is really important, that we design that and plan that carefully, and that's all part of the pedagogy that I've developed. So that's really important. Having something called wayfinding is really important, and wayfinding is adds to that sense of security, where as children come in the door of the learning environment, they can see where to go. There's no big bookshelf right next to the door. They can actually see how to go to one learning experience to the other and to the other. And they sort of bounce back throughout the room because they can see where to go. It's wayfinding. And the example I often use there is, if we dropped you into the middle of a big shopping mall, big shopping area, and said, go to the coffee shop, and you would have a moment of panic because you think, I don't know where the coffee shop is. And, you know, there's so many places, there's so many ways I could go, and there's so many people, I don't know what to do. So you'd have just this moment of not feeling so safe. And that's not what we want in our classroom. So we want the defined spaces that we've set up in our learning environment to be clearly observable, so the children know where to go. It's called wayfinding. So that all sounds great, but what might it look like in practice? It could look like something like this. Now, I know everybody's room is different. Everybody's learning environment and the space is different. And we can implement BrainSet everywhere, because you don't have to have new furniture. We repurpose what you already have. We reshape the design of your space and your room. So BrainSet is applicable everywhere. I've heard so many reasons why we couldn't possibly do it. The room's too small, the room's too big, we've got too many children, we've got old furniture, we haven't got toys. Well, I've heard it all, but I promise you we can do it. And it's just a matter of working out how we can repurpose what you already have. So on the left-hand side there, this is like a little respite space. This is just a little space for one, where a child can go and be by themselves. And you can see when they pull the chair into the table, the world is behind them. And, you know, children, out of sight, out of mind. But they also have a mirror there. And, you know, again, young children, they love looking at themselves in the mirror. And that also happens again when they get to be about 13 or 14. But having a small defined space like that adds to that sense of safety. It feels good, it feels secure, and so a lot of thinking can happen. So then we have to really think about, well, what are we going to put on that table then? We've got rounded corners there. That's another element of that sense of safety. In the middle image, that's a photo of, you know, a longer photo of a full classroom, or part of it. We were in the middle of redesigning and sort of moving things around when I took this photo. But you can see that there's round edges there, and not everything is hard, sharp edges of a square table or a rectangular table. So if you have the round tables, or if you have round mats, great. If you don't, that's okay, because you can use the round little placemats or round bowls or round something else that you can put on the harder shapes, and that softens it. And you can see that there's defined spaces sort of set out in the room. On the right hand side, this is a little dramatic play space area where there's a lot of attention to detail, and you'll notice that real things are being used there. That's real glass, and that's a real teapot, and the children take a lot of care of it, and that is a place for two. And I observed the children using this space when I was in this classroom. This is in Los Angeles, in America, and that's where I'm working at the moment. So I'm in America for a little while, sharing BrainSet with early childhood educators, and we've implemented BrainSet across the world in various centres, from China to Australia to America to New Zealand. So we're global. So we work online, but we also work face to face. And when I'm there face to face, I actually work with the teachers and move the furniture, literally lift tables and move the furniture, and structure the learning environment so that it complies with the BrainSet pedagogy and the BrainSet thinking. Now, when it's set up in the BrainSet way, the classroom is very productive, because the children are engaged in all of these defined spaces. It's a non-threatening space. There might only be one other person in the space with that child, so it's non-threatening. So their oral language increases because they tend to talk a little more. Their creativity explodes. Their behaviour issues decrease. Problem solving is obvious. Decision making, cooperation, negotiation. Their literacy development, numeracy development is enhanced, because children are in these small spaces. The educator or the teacher can go to these spaces and talk to the children in almost like a one-to-one or one-to-small group approach, so they can facilitate. That's where we're talking about the relationships that we spoke about earlier. We can really build those relationships there because we're just working with a small group of children all the time. And then, of course, we bring the children together to do songs or games or music and, you know, read a story like we always have done. So what I'm really sharing with you is the BrainSet Environments formula, and it is making sure that we set our classroom up in a way that's conducive to brain development and it aligns with the needs of the brain. And if you don't remember anything else, remember a calm brain is a thinking brain, and that's my motto for BrainSet. And I'll leave it there, Smithy. That's probably enough information for my little part here, but that gives you a bit of an idea of what we're talking about.
Yay, Dr. Catherine, it's not just, it doesn't give us just a little bit of an idea, it gives us a lot of ideas. And, yeah, and I'm sure all the creative educators can actually build upon this. And like Dr. Catherine said, she is there for all of us. You have more queries and things like that, you please get in touch with her. She is on LinkedIn and you can write to her. You can write your comments here. You can write to us. We'll get in touch with you. We'll get you in touch with her for your further queries on BrainSet environment. Here we have limited time. We have more wonderful speakers that we're looking forward to hear today. So here we go for our second question, which goes to Ms. Gina Bale from the Little Magic Train. Yeah, the train, I love trains. I have always loved trains. As a child, I always wanted to be the driver for a train, you know, train engine. I always wanted to see that, you know, as a kid, and my father, who was like a hardcore businessman in India, I was like, what do you mean train driver? You know, you used to even travel by train, and I wanted to be an engine driver, imagine. So I was always fascinated. I think all kids are fascinated by the train. So a Little Magic Train is the best idea to keep, you know, for early years. So Ms. Gina, my question to you, long question, huh? Listen very carefully. So I don't know what makes me frame these long, large questions. Okay, so here goes. Should classrooms be a teaching zone with information and concept knowledge being imparted by a scripted and designed teacher-led curriculum? Or according to you, it should be a learning lab where children take the onus of their own learning through maybe hypothesis, the discovery and experimentation? So these two different takes on it. Should it be teacher-led? Should it be children-led? And should it be like, you know, in India, we have a very scripted, designed curriculum. I work in the curriculum department. So we, you know, we even write what the teacher has to say in the class. You know, we don't even give her the space. We feel that, you know, maybe she's imparting the wrong information, or maybe she says something incorrectly. So we write everything to give her, you know, the scripted curriculum, and she, poor thing, has to actually go by that. So is that the way, or it should be a learning lab for children? You know, that's what I say. How does an early childhood educator actually create such an exploratory environment of learning? You know, where the children can actually explore and then learn, rather than the teacher saying and they're learning. So can it be done through music and movement pedagogy that you have been practicing over the years? So, and, you know, can it be actually a mainstream pedagogy, the music and movement, rather than, you know, the literacy and the numeracy? So what do you think about it? Please.
Right. As Catherine said, so many questions. but that's good.
Actually, these are all questions in my mind. I don't know whether the attendees or, you know, the people who are actually registered want to listen to it or not. These are all my questions, huh?
It's an inquiring mind, which is fabulous, we want that in our early year settings. The perfect, if you're an inquiring mind, yes. Well, I'm going to go to the last question first, and I'm sort of going to go in an odd way around it. Yes, everything can be done through movement, music, storylines, adventures, illustrations, because their children will be learning in a multisensory way, because you don't know how they're going to learn. Obviously, when children are young, they're kinesthetic learners. Babies move to learn, and a moving child is a learning child, and movement literally grows the brain, as I'm sure Catherine will go, yes. And we have the the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which stimulates the growth of new neurons. And as the children are moving and doing things and repeating, children say again, 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 they are laying the myelin around the neurons in the brain, giving them faster broadband. And they need a certain amount of myelin before speech as well. So everything is linked, for me, everything is linked with movement. Music and movement are the universal language across the world. So, and that is something that's really important. So I really truly believe using movement, the way you set up your spaces, the way Catherine had her beautiful spaces, that is movement. The children are moving from one space to another to learn. And what we do is we found that sort of I'm sort of going to jump up again, because authentic learning is a big thing in the UK at the moment and in Wales. And if teachers just say authentic learning, we're only going to learn about things in our own environment, it becomes very narrow, black and white. There's no grey, no layers, no shade in between, which will then create an insular group of children. They won't know anything about the world around them. They will not be citizens of the world. And it is not good in a diverse setting. This is something I am seeing. It's a big argument I have. Just to give you an idea, I spoke to a nursery, and they were saying, well, we can't take the children on an adventure to the North Pole or to space or to the Amazon because that's not authentic. They're never going to experience that. There I was hitting my head on the desk, bang, bang, going stabbity, stabbity, stab in the nicest possible way, going, oh, but it's very cold at the moment. Where is our wind coming from? The Arctic. Where is the North Pole? In the Arctic. Isn't that the best thing? So the children are experiencing a part of the Arctic. And I said, oh, where do all the vegetables come from in the supermarket? Catherine's going, yes, I stood on my soapbox, Catherine. I got so cross and grumpy. And I said, oh, the Amazon, where do all the vegetables come from in the supermarkets? I said, you know that they originated from the rainforests. So you might as you're learning about it everywhere, cutting up. Oh, and I was going, nah. And then space. Well, we can't use space for seasons, and we can't use space because it's not authentic. I went, oh, do you not have the moon in your back garden? And then I was trying to be very nice and very polite, but it was that narrow boom thing that I found so hard, which is why if you take away the arts, you take away what makes us human. And that is what is so important. We are human. That is what makes us different to any other species on the planet that we know of. You never know. Those cats, we could be singing a band at night outside in the garden. We don't know. We've no idea. We can't talk to them yet. But it is something that is so important. And just to give you some ideas that you were saying, the combination of scripted, that fills me with terror and dread. I remember 30 years ago going into a session with my lovely teaching plan. I would always rip it up because the children would not respond. They'd had a bad night. This had happened. These things are going on. You have to read the room. Having a scripted curriculum doesn't allow you to read the room, especially if you're telling them what to say. That is quite scary. It's like, oh my goodness, please. So for me, the best combination is child-led with a little bit of guided, because that does seem to give the best results. Obviously, my background originally was ballet. And of course, that is the most scripted, the most myelin-based way of learning, because it's repeat, repeat, repeat. And we are developing. And actually, dancers have amazing sequencing because there's something about the way that we learn, and that is something that I've put into everything that I do. But I didn't realize I was developing myelin in the children because we started to hear the speech and language is improving. We're feeding in language. They're building relationships with each other. There's so much that you can do with music and movement. And just to give you an idea, you can set up in your setting all these lovely provocations, which I could see in Catherine's was wonderful. If you're using a theme, seasons. So here it's winter. It's still winter in America, definitely sort of winter in India. Well, you say cold at 25 degrees, I go, that's hot. when I was in Guwahati, they're saying, oh, this is really cold. They're in winter coats. And I looked at their weather and I was going, it's 27 degrees. There were scarves on. I was going, really? It's the UK. So I was -10 at that time when I was speaking to them in here. But no, it's sort of getting that combination, having the perfect setup, giving them the areas that they can investigate, they can explore. But some children need that little bit extra. Some need that push of that imagination, as do the teachers. Teachers forget to be children. They lose their inner child because they spend their life saying, no, 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 we're not children anymore. We're grown-ups, we're teenagers, we're going to parties, blah, blah, blah. So you need to still be a child. I'm still a child through and through, which is really annoying for my daughter. But yes, so I went to this incredible nursery, outstanding on Ofsted, phenomenal. They have the most gorgeous setup. Catherine would have loved it. They also have forest school outside. They've just been given all this money. They just created this amazing, fully inclusive play area for the children, because that is something that's really important. They have authentic learning. They have a completely child-led, but what they do is they have parts of the day will focus on numeracy or jolly phonics, things like that, or they do Little Magic Train or cooking, things that will engage different children at different times depending how they're feeling, because they do read the room and they need to make sure everything is right for those children. But just from the North Pole, you have early science, early technology, early math. Oh my goodness, there is so much that you can do with the children. And just an example, ice cubes with animals inside. How are we going to save them? Different modes of transport for technology. How are we going to get to the North Pole? What do we need to survive in the North Pole? Satellite phones. Oh, and by the way, for the teacher, space is where the satellites are. We experience every day on our GPS and on our TV and Sky. Other brands are available. So it is everything about space is there. And everything that I have to remind them, everything that we see around us now that has been created, I hate saying man-made, human-made, has come from someone's imagination. Take away their imagination, we have nothing. So you need to stimulate their imagination through the environment, through music and movement activities that engage those children, through art, everything. It's a combination, because number one, every child is different. Every child needs different things on different days. And it's, for me, that, I mean, I could list all these different things. I mean, I've got pages here. I was thinking, no. It's like, oh, there goes my dog in the background. But there's so much that I could give you. And I know we're very tight on time, but no, for me, everything can be done through movement is vital to learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gina, for that. Absolutely, movement is vital for the brain development. And like what Gina said, just made me remember something that I was, reading about a few days back. Was that authentic learning? Yeah, narrow-minded. Let's only know about our culture, our environment. And sometimes they call it from known to unknown, but we don't reach the unknown. It's like that. You start with the known, but you don't reach the unknown just because we're so limited in our thoughts. It's something like, banishing the Froebel's kindergartens in Germany way back in 1800s because it was progressive. So we don't want to do it. It's just like, we don't want anything else. We just want what we have. And the children should be learning more about that. In fact, we were doing a curriculum for a country called Kenya, and they were very particular about it. Our culture, our religion, our animals, everything that we have in our country, please design the curriculum according to that. So these kind of things actually restrict the imagination of the children. Like Gina said, please let them be. And everything and all learning can happen through music and movement. The trajectory is very important. Children love to move. You can't make them sit in one place, say, no, don't speak, no, don't do anything, just listen to me and you'll learn. They will never learn. So the main point is at the sensory motor stage, when the children are just so full of so many experiences that is there around the world, please don't make them sit. That's one thing which is very, very important. And, good thing that you have your child and maybe your daughter is annoyed with you. My family is annoyed with me. Don't worry. We are okay. We're good people. So, right on. Going over to the next question, short of time, to Ms. Drishti. So as Rishti being the counselor, we have to understand about from her that, how does one create an environment which allows scaffolding and early interventions in an early years classroom? Can we have a classroom where we can actually implement individualized learning plans? Like Gina just said, that every child is different. They would learn differently. They want different things. And we just, during the course of the day, we have understood that, they come from different cultures and different family setup. So can individualized learning plans be implemented as per the learning disposition of each child? How does one create an environment where that can happen? That scaffolding can happen, that interventions can happen. The teacher can actually give that to a child. Like,
Yeah,
I
these
was
are
doing one second. Sorry
yeah.
to interrupt. I was doing this entire course in EYFS and the cash learning course. And there, the first principle is that of a unique child. So when we say that each child is a unique child, that's the first thing. And I don't think so. Seldom we most often we forget about that. See, talking about uniqueness. So most importantly, we forget that in a classroom setup when we have so many children to look after. So Drishti, over to you.
Yeah, so these are two very vast topics. So I have like just made some points which are really important. So I'm gonna start with the individualized learning plans. Yes, individualized learning plans can be introduced in the classroom as each child is different. His or her needs are totally different. The way they learn, maybe some children learn in the group setting, and maybe some want to learn in this, just one-on-one with their teacher. So we should respect that. We should notice and observe what each child needs. So, according to me, when I was an early childhood educator back in Australia, so what I used to do with my students, I had a group of students, I used to set goals for the development. I used to do some observations and set goals. I used to introduce the activities in the classroom. I used to set them beforehand, before my child is arriving in the classroom. And I used to try to achieve that goals and follow consistency. Not I will not accept to achieve that goal in a day, in 2 days, maybe 1 2 weeks. No child is going to do that, and we are not here to push the children. And observe and extend their learning. So I'll come back to scaffolding as well. So in this process, I used to follow scaffolding where I used to observe and extend the learning from one point to the other to increase their learning. And then working together with families. As a parenting expert, I always like to keep families and parents with me, and we work side by side each and on every step. And I like to offer children some choices as well. When we are working on individualized plans, offering choices is the major step. These things can be followed at home and in an education setting as well. And how the classroom has their layout, the art and craft table, open-ended resources, all the layouts, these will really enhance the individualized learning. And the learning dispositions as well, such as trust, patience, curiosity, cooperation, being involved when the goal is set. A trust can be formed between an educator and the children. And the playful time, not all play has to be sit down and in a serious mode. The play can be very playful. The education can be, maybe it's the water play or getting messy with it and just playing with the water, and you can learn so many things with it as well. So now I'll move forward to scaffolding. What is scaffolding? So I really like this term when I was reading about it, which is given by Vygotsky, psychologist. It is, according to me, scaffolding is the guidance and the skills. When a trained educator or a trained parent holds the hand of the child and lead them with them, but according to a child's pace. We don't push the child, we don't force the child to do it. We just observe, what kind of certain skill the child has, and then we move forward through it. So when in the early childhood setting, we can definitely introduce scaffolding and the early interventions. They can be like encourage group work. When a child is working in the group, he or she will learn from their peers as well. They observe, they want to play with their peers, maybe in the dollhouse corner, in the home corner. They are observing the children. When they're stirring the things, they're extending their learning. So group work really is helpful. It's not only for the skills, but also for communication skills, social skills, and waiting manners, patience. They learn all these little skills from this working in the group. The other one is we shouldn't offer too much help to children. We shouldn't like always ask. We can ask open-ended questions. For example, if we have seen the child working with the blocks and they're building up a tower, just don't offer help when you see the block is just falling down again and again. Instead, ask them open-ended questions like, what do you think we can do to make this tower the longer one, or how we can make it firm so that it doesn't fall? Give the child the opportunity to think and brainstorm the ideas and see at how beautiful and amazing answers the little ones can come up with. And the last thing which we can follow with our children is give your child the opportunity to think aloud. Ask them questions, give them prompting questions, ask them questions so that they have the opportunity to think, okay, if I place this bigger block at the bottom and the smaller one at the top, maybe it balances well. Give them the opportunity. So this really helps. And also, the main important thing is when I used to be in the kindergarten setting, the thing which me and my families what children are doing and where their current level of learning is. Observe where your child is at and pick it up from there. So for example, your child is working in an art and craft section, and you observe the children pasting the little particles on the sheets, and you can ask questions, you can ask open-ended questions, what they are doing, how they are doing, what is this. You can ask questions like this and let them come up with good examples, and then stand back. Maybe then you have seen that okay, they can do pasting, maybe you can extend the learning by introducing scissors and with the cutting, which will help them with their fine motor skills as well. So you have extended their learning from just pasting to cutting as well. And now then just stand back and observe how the child is gonna appreciate the skill of cutting, and just let them do it independently. They are gonna do it. Maybe they will have a problem in one go or the second go, but they'll try and they will learn from there. And then repeat. If you think the child is not able to do it, just monitor and alter the skills if needed. So the other one is early interventions. What are early interventions? Basically, it is like if a child is having any problem with the different areas, or they have any disabilities, or they have some problem with the speech or communication, or they are not very physically active. So these things can be done at the time of the orientation as well. When the child is coming in the center, the parents can introduce them, or when the child is already in the kindergarten setting or in the classroom setting and teachers observe it. So the first step is asking the campus, or if we have those available, like occupational therapists, speech therapist, physical therapy. The occupational therapist helps with the fine motor skills. The physical therapist, they help with the gross motor skills. And the speech therapist can come in, they can evaluate and they can do assessments on how, the speech can be improved. They can meet up with the families, or some they can come up with the common activities which they can be done at home and the school as well. And psychological services as well, because I really emphasize on the mental health, because the little ones also, they feel a lot. But the thing is, the little ones can't express themselves, they don't have a lot of vocabulary. We adults, we have the privilege that we have a lot of vocabulary with us, but the little ones don't. So the mental health service, the teachers giving them assurance that we are here to support you. There is any other problem going on at home, maybe when children observe some conflicts at home between parents, or some separation they see, or some usual arguments at home which happen in normal households. So the children can get very, very disturbed. So I really emphasize on the psychological services as well. So these are the points which I always add in the early interventions. So I really like to focus on this. And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Shishu, for sharing your ideas. Yes, of course, very important points taken. Early interventions are very, very essential, because if we let them go and we let the opportunity go, then the scaffolding does not happen. The scaffolding will take longer. The thing is that it can happen at any age group, but the thing is that how much time would it take? Much more. It would take a longer period, because right now the brain is developing. And at that time, if the child gets the support that it needs, it would be much more faster. So we mentioned Levi-Gossi, of course, ZPD, the zone of proximal development, explains us all of that, how to scaffold and take them from point A to point B. Another thing is, like Mr. She just said, that we adults have vocabulary to express our feelings and emotions, and we would rather not. Poor little kids, they don't have a vocabulary and they want to express so much. So there is a vicious cycle. We have the vocabulary, but we don't express it. We rather keep our feelings to ourselves. There also we need interventions. Going from interventions to play. Okay, from a very serious topic to we go over to Ms. Garima Bhatia, who's a play expert, and the question for her. Again, a long question. I can't help it, so sorry. So, Garima, do you think creating a productive environment, as we discussed till now, so we have so many points now, and my brain is actually creating a lot of connections and synapses. I think I'm going back into the age of 0 to 6, where my brain is developing from the session itself, because I'm like, it's like working so much, and I have so much of dopamine now that I'm so excited that I don't know what I'm going to do. Let my husband come back home. Okay, so do you think that creating a productive environment, as we discussed till now, will help educators in managing time also and the learning in classroom to enable optimum learning experiences for the child? And we would like to give us some very practical hands-on strategies from the play pedagogy, which the educators can implement in their existing framework and actually use this productive environment to manage their own time and the learning space for the children. Over to you, Garima.
Thank you, Smriti. I mean, you've really made us laugh in between. But yes, as they say that, for children, play is work. And honestly, we have to go down to those little creatures, to those little humans, get into their world to be able to plan it out. So we as teachers, my first thing always to my colleagues, to my team is come down to their level. The eye contact also come down. Always, even when you are welcoming children, bend down, be on your knees, then give a high five, then give a bump, because then the children really feel that now it is. And secondly, I'd like to start with a short video, moving on to a short presentation. So I'll share my screen. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfectly fine. Only thing, Dr. Vasi is going to kill me after the session, because she's at 6:30 and I don't know till how long we are going to discuss this. I'm enjoying myself. I just hope that the speakers do not have any pressing things to go to. Are you all okay with extending it for another 5-7 minutes? Thumbs up.
Yep.
I am okay. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Garima, video and then presentation, all yours. Does it also have an audio, because we can't hear? Yeah.
So I specifically chose this one because, it is a very